Grandstand was at North Port for the first preliminary final between Port Melbourne and the Northern Bullants. Marty Pask was in the expert comments chair. And Marty, what we got to see was a great contest, a great game of footy.
Just a great finals game of football, Pete. I think both sides were at each other's for 3 quarters. Stoppage work, clearances, running the football. Played a pretty similar game style, and just the ability of both sides really to put on a good showcase for VFL football was outstanding.
The wind was a factor. Port probably had it in the first quarter, even though it was more of a crosswind. But they came up with a really good first quarter, and that's something that Port hadn't been able to do throughout the year. They kicked 6 goals in the first quarter. They had the lead by 14 points, but you still had the feeling that the Bullants were very much in the contest after that.
Well, they were. The Bullants really never gave them too much of a lead, and they kept at them all day. They were particularly well serviced from the likes of Houlihan, Russell off half-back, Joey Dare off half-back as well, and they really set themselves up well from defence and ran the ball out of defence particularly well and matched it with Port Melbourne.
It was a tale of 2 forwards, wasn't it, in the first half? It was Ryan Houlihan at one end, Jared Waite, by the way, surprisingly playing a last-minute inclusion, and Dean Galea was simply fantastic at the other end for Port.
The thing I liked about Galea today was he actually stood up as a tall marking forward. They didn't really have anyone that was over sort of 6 foot tall that could take a big contested mark, but he certainly did that today. He took some marks at full stretch, and at times too we saw him to take the contested mark. He wasn't only just good on the lead, he manufactured a few goals off the ground and in the air as well.
It was in this period of the third quarter, Ryan Houlihan getting a couple of early goals, O'Keefe got 1. The Bullants got 3 goals at the start of the third term, and they really got the momentum away from Port Melbourne.
They did, and the third term really was the Bullants quarter, and they really were in the contest. There was no doubt about it. They were running well. They almost made, as we see here, Valenti's nice little sidestep and goal, but they almost made the Port Melbourne players look pretty slow and second-rate. But look, just key misses at key crucial times in that third term. We see Waite's miss there, and we see another one from O'Keefe a bit later, but just really cost them in the end.
We talked about it at the time, how significant that would turn out to be. It was a 1-point ball game at 3-quarter time. The Northern Bullants had the lead. Port were going into the wind, but all of a sudden they came up with some superhuman efforts. Toby Pimmel and John Baird in the last quarter was simply outstanding.
They were outstanding, but we heard in the 3-quarter time address from Gary Ayres that it mightn't be your match, but it can be your moment, and we saw that with McMahon early in the 4th term, run, chase down, tackle, and resulted in a goal. Then we saw Fleming move forward as well, which almost became the game-winning move from Gary Ayres. The fact that he had a bit of a rough day on Ryan Houlihan, but the fact is he went forward, held his head up high, and kicked 2 crucial goals in that 4th term as well.
He kicked a goal at the 13-minute mark, at the 21-minute mark. Chris Kane bobbed up with a couple as well. One here where he was just standing there in the goal square. Then Patrick Rose got 1, and it was Port doing as Port does so often, in particular at this ground, just rolling over the top of the opposition and finding a way to win.
They did, and that's what they did well. I mean, it was disappointing for the Bullants, but well done to them. They only had the 10 wins for the season, but to make it through to a preliminary final was a fantastic result for them, but Port Melbourne just too good.
And Port records its 20th consecutive victory of season 2011, but more importantly, earns the right to play for the premiership next weekend. Port Melbourne with a fantastic performance in the last quarter, 18-19-127, defeating the Northern Bullants 16-9-105. The Bullants bow out with their heads held high, and the Borough looking towards that elusive flag, something they haven't been able to do since way back in 1982. Will this be the year for Port Melbourne?